Great to have you here this morning. Now, at the last sitting of the Commission of Inquiry into the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election violence, Ningo Pram MP appeared for the second time to present his video evidence of the assault that took place at La Bawaleshi. Later, the East Legon District Crime Officer took her turn. We'll get highlights of her submission later, but first, you may recall the issue about a key in relation to Mr. Sam George. Well, Professor Henrietta Mensah questioned why he was so fixated on a key he knew nothing about. Listen.
Somebody has seized a key.
My Lord, that was one of the complaints I heard from the crowd when I tried in my attempt to douse the tension that was there. They said a key had been seized by one of the NSC group members.
Did they say what key?
No, my Lord. They just said a key.
Mr. George, you went to a premises. You saw a large crowd. You didn't know why they were there. You didn't know who they were. And you saw that a few minor scuffles were taking place, you said.
Yes, my Lord.
And then you intervened.
I tried to de-escalate, yes, my Lord, because I noticed that many of the members in the crowd were at the residence of my party's candidate.
Oh, so you knew that was the house of the party candidate?
When I arrived there, I found out, because he has a big billboard. At the time, there was a big billboard in there, in front of the house, that had his image there in the house. And you could see people, some with party paraphernalia. There were party markings, his posters, all over on the place. And so I assumed that was the place.
So when you saw those things, you determined that they were related to the election, so you stayed?
Absolutely, my Lord.
Okay.
Well, on that same day, the Commission declined a request from counsel of Sam George and Delali Kwesi to cross-examine witnesses, arguing that it will, among other things, set a wrong precedent.
To bear in mind the fact that this is an investigative body whose core task is to conduct a thorough, dispassionate, and accurate inquiry into the matters falling under its remit pursuant to CI 111. In other words, the work of the Commission, unlike that of a regular court, is not to decide what the balance of rights and liabilities are between competing parties, and the rules of evidence do not apply in the same way and sense. Consequently, the evidentiary methodology of the Commission differs from that of a court in the sense that whereas the evidence led by parties in a court are, quote, party-led or centered, unquote, in nature, the evidence given and led before the Commission is Commission-led or centered, in quotes, given that parties do not appear before the Commission to testify in pursuit of their own interest or the advancement of a selfish cause, but rather that witnesses who appear to testify before the Commission do so to aid the Commission arrive at the truth in respect of the facts implicated in its mandate. In this regard, the request by a party to call a witness with a view to impeaching the prior testimony of the party may have the effect of converting the nature and ethos of the Commission's work and transform its public enterprise character into proceedings in defense of private rights. This may further undermine the freedom to testify afforded all witnesses appearing before the Commission, as parties will now have worry about confronting persons who are aggrieved by their testimony. In light of the above reasons, the Commission declines the request by counsel for both Mr. Delali Brempong as well as Honorable Sam George to recall a witness or witnesses with a view to cross-examining them. In arriving at this conclusion, we are also guided by the dangerous precedent that may be set by according to this request, by which all witnesses may now choose to exercise the option of recalling witnesses with a view to cross-examining them. This will fundamentally disrupt the proceedings of the Commission and undermine the structure and orientation of the proceedings. If granted, judicial equity will demand that similarly situated applicants and applications should also be granted, and that cannot be countenanced for the reasons given above.
Well, after that submission by the chairperson, Council of St. George, Dominic Ayeni, said they were going to study the judgment and see other possible options if there are any. Well, after his submission, the East Legon District Crime Officer, DSP Abena Benewa Kwabena, in her evidence says she met two boys with two spent shells during her visit to the scene on the day of the incident. She's actually the only witness so far who has stated school was not in session at the time of the violence on the day of the by-election.
We got to the La Baolishin Presbyterian cluster of schools. Initially, we thought that was where the incident happened. But I saw two young men, about 12, 13, and I inquired because I saw them with two spent shells in their hands.
Please go on.
So it was these people who directed me to the actual scene, which happened to be the presidential aspirant of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Delali Brempong. So we got there, and the initial information I gathered was that some people in brown trousers and black uniform, masked, came to the scene. Initially, they said they went to the Laobalishin Presby School, and somebody they met started taking video shots or photographs of them. That was the account the peoples I met gave to me. So when they demanded that those footages should be deleted, that person refused and ran towards Mr. Delali's residence. So those men followed him to that place. And when they got there, they decided to conduct some searches. And other people they met at the scene started throwing stones at them. And that was what necessitated the firing of live ammunition. Accounts I heard from the small boys I met.
While continuing her testimony, she said a gentleman she later gathered was the Wala youth chief here in Accra had as many as 37 spent shells in his possession, which he refused to give to her.
There was also somebody who had a collection of the spent shells. And that person, when I demanded for same to be handed over to me, refused and said he was going to use same for some purpose. But eventually, I asked my investigator to monitor him. So we got him at a point where he was granting some interview to some media men, and I had the collection of the empty shells captured, and it's on my phone. I later gathered his identity, and I'll pass it on to the commission so that same will be collected for ballistic analysis, my lord.
And who is this person?
He is the youth chief of Wala. I gathered, but I don't know his name. The Wala youth chief, my lord.
ESB. Is it a case of you not knowing his name because you didn't ask, or you didn't deem it as important?
I did, but he failed to mention same to me. It was upon my inquiries from sources at the scene I gathered he was the youth chief of Wala, my lord.
If you say youth chief of Wala, do you mean Wala in
Accra, my lord.
Accra?
Yes, my lord.
Where in Accra is called Wala?
My Lord, Wala is supposed to be the name of an ethnic group. So the youth chief of that ethnic group. I have managed to get some information and I would share, my Lord, later.
Yes, B.
Yes, my Lord.
The youth chief of Wala. Do you know his residence?
My Lord, I gathered he lives around Weja.
Have you subsequently sought to locate specifically where he lives?
I am making some arrangement with some sources I have contacted to assist. My Lord, I lost my mom, so I was on leave. That's how come the process has delayed a bit. So I'm in the process of doing so, my Lord.
My condolence.
Grateful, my Lord.
Now, did you seek to find out from this youth chief of Wala how he came by the spent shells?
My Lord, I was challenged in terms of communication because he was more comfortable in the Hausa language. So it was my investigator, Detective Inspector Sule, who dealt with him most of the time. And I was briefed afterwards, my Lord.
So what did Inspector Sule tell you had transpired between himself and the youth chief of Wala?
Inspector Sule briefed me that he wanted the spent shells to be handed over to him. But he said he wasn't going to do so, but he would allow him to have just a photograph of it. So that was what he allowed him to do, and he did.
Did he have any particular reason for that?
He said he was going to use it to make his case.
Where?
He did not indicate so, my Lord.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But wouldn't there have been within the power of the police to compel him to hand over evidence of shooting?
My Lord, the situation at the scene was not conducive, but I knew when the time comes, I can take legal steps to have it retrieved from him, my Lord.
So, as we speak, it is a fact that the police do not have in their custody the spent shells shown to them by the youth chief of Wala. Is that the case?
Exactly, my Lord.
How many of your men were with you at the scene?
Just Detective Inspector Sule Jalo, my Lord.
Very well. Now, how many shells in all, according to the photograph you took, are in the possession of the youth chief of Wala?
Detective Inspector Sule briefed me that he counted them. The Wala youth chief counted, and he said there were 37 spent shells, my Lord.
A DSP Kwabena stated that not giving information on the spent shells to the team that took over investigations into the violence was not fatal to the investigations.
With the schoolboys. Have you got it here?
The schoolboys.
Yeah. The spent shells, the empty casing. Have you got them here?
No, my Lord.
Where are they?
They are in the office, my Lord. I will make them available. I really wanted to have the ones I saw with the Wala chief, so that all of them will be labeled together for subsequent ballistic analysis, my Lord.
Yes, B.
Yes, my Lord.
You agree with me that it's been close to a month since the incident. Am I right?
Very well, my Lord.
Yes. I do acknowledge the fact that you were bereaved. But you will also agree with me that you have assistance. True or false? You have assistants?
I don't, but I have a station officer who is
Very
also a
well.
detective.
So then, any ballistic analysis that is supposed to be carried out on these spent shells didn't necessarily have to be done by you. Would you agree?
I agree, my lord.
And
But
that
I needed to have it as a full exhibit to be forwarded. And that wouldn't even be done by me because my divisional crime officer has taken over from me. I would have handed them over to him for the forwarding and analysis, my lord.
have you mentioned them to the divisional crime officer?
No, my lord.
Why not?
My lord, this information about the Wala Youth Chief, I needed to get some information about where he lives and how we can contact him. So I needed to establish some concrete information about the person. But I agree, I should have just mentioned the fact that there's this information in my custody to be given to him. I haven't done that, and I must admit that the bereavement and all that also created a bit of problem for me. So I will do that immediately.
So then, DSP,
Yes, my lord.
if the investigation has advanced and you still have not submitted this very important piece of evidence, you have then denied the team of investigators this important piece of information, which wouldn't be included. Am I right?
It could impede it a little, but it is not fatal. It can be done. Analysis can be done at any point in time during the investigative process, my lord.
If you say impede it a little, what do you mean by little?
I know the analysis can help us establish lots of things to help us in our investigation, but it is not fatal because it has delayed. It can be done at any point in the investigative process, my lord.
ESP. This is an incident which has caught the attention of the whole country. You agree with me?
I do, my lord.
And the whole country, as we speak, is waiting for the outcome of the investigation. Do you agree with me?
I do, my lord.
So then, you also agree with me that any delay, even if it's a day, is very important and cannot be described as little. Will you agree?
I do, but my lord, the specials I saw with the Wala Youth Chief had different ones. And I thought having them and then adding the two specials I had would enable us to a comprehensive analysis about what's actually happened. So I didn't think just the two would be enough because I was making arrangements to get all of them for a comprehensive analysis. They might have come from different weapons and not just the two. The two could have come from just one weapon. So because he had many of them, I thought having that and adding the two I had to it would give us a broader perspective on what actually happened, my lord.
Yes, we have. You mentioned the Wala Youth Chief to your divisional crime officer.
No, my lord.
When were you going to do that?
My lord,
If you were going to do that at all.
just want to give an information without any substantive or substantial point to my divisional crime. So I didn't think just mentioning it that I saw some spent shells with somebody would be enough. I wanted to have concrete information and then hand them over to him, my lord.
Well, one of the commissioners, Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu, questioned the East Legon District Crime Officer's judgment of withholding information on the spent shells from the investigative team.
I know that you were bereaved and so you were probably not paying much attention to the things, but you did not even mention it to the divisional commander that there was somebody with these shells who could be approached and for the shells to be turned over, or that you yourself even had two in your custody that you got from some schoolboys.
My lady, the bereavement did not really affect me, but as I indicated, I wanted to have concrete information on what I was going to brief them about. And so I needed to wait and get to those concrete details before I briefed. But
suppose there had been a death, and the death had been by gunshot, and you kept the shells to yourself, and the others, you allowed an unauthorized person to take custody instead of it being under proper custody and control. Do you think you'd have served the ends of justice?
no, my lord.
So DSP Kwabna was the last person to appear before the commission on Tuesday. There was a one-day break. Yesterday, there was no hearing. Today, the commission is resuming work. But before we take you there, I've got a colleague with me here. He's from our online team. He's an editor there, Malik Dabu. Great to have you.
Good to be here.
Great, great, great. Now, we've heard from a couple of people, more than 7 people who have appeared before the commission, and the commission took a break. Over the days, we've seen that the numbers have been reducing, the time spent on public hearing has been reducing. We spoke to the PR of the commission, who says, well, the commission is beginning to find a focus. Generally, so far, what would your assessment of the commission's work be?
I think it's been great, and if you want to know how great it's been, listen to opposition politicians and what their assessment of the commission's work has been. Remember that the very first day it was announced that this commission had been set up, the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Esidin Ketia, said that they did not have faith in that commission and that it was just a ruse designed to divert attention and to create a false impression that something was being done by a disinterested government in dealing with the issues of violence that happened or nearly marred the elections at Ayawaso West Wogon. Now, so he said that the party, subsequently they issued a statement saying that they were boycotting, they will not be part of the commission's processes and proceedings and hearings. Having said that and having released this statement, we have seen the NDC's parliamentary candidate for that by-election go and testify before the commission. We have seen the member of parliament for Ningo Pram go and testify before that commission. I was on the Super Mono show last week when we spoke to the minority leader Haruna Idris, who is member of parliament for Tamale North, Tamale South, who said that he thinks that his party may have had a misunderstanding of what the processes of the commission were, and that with the benefit of hindsight, they think that the commission's work is good. We have had Evans Mensah, our colleague here, speak to the national chairman of the NDC, Officer Ampofu, who says that he thinks that the commission is doing great work. So that is ample testimony to what the commission has done and the centrality of the commission's work, and the fact that even those who didn't give the commission a dog's chance right from its inception, now having a second thought and saying this commission is doing good work. So I think that that's good for the commission and that's good for the process.
We had an expert talk about the work of the commission, a security expert, who was concerned that there was so much focus on the issue of shell casings. We just had DSP talk about that, and how many shell casings there are, why they were not handed over to the investigative team, or why the investigative team was not informed about those shell casings, because she didn't even receive them. And also the shell casings brought in by MP for Ningo Pram Sam George.
Yeah, I mean, these experts tend to have reasons why they will raise some of these questions, but I think that what the commission members are seeking to do is to get an understanding. I think there's a fundamental concern about the manner in which police investigations tend to be contaminated. Usually when incidents occur, you don't want the incident scene to be contaminated because it is on the basis of evidence collected from the accident or incident scene that you can get an understanding of what has happened, which would then form the basis for any change in policy or change in guidelines or change in direction, change in rules and regulations, recommendations for punishment, recommendations for even commendations and all of that. Now, when you have a person of interest in an incident, being the one who is in possession of key evidence of that incident, you wonder whether the evidence has not been tampered with and whether it's not been contaminated. I think it is on the basis of that, with that background, that the commission members are asking all the questions that they are asking.
In fact, the MP for Ningo Pram Pram was asked that same question, why he didn't hand over to the police. His response was that the same police that stood by while I was being assaulted, I trust this commission, suggesting that there was a bit of mistrust on how the Ghana Police Service was going to handle that particular evidence that he was given. Now the question is, this Wala chief who DSP Pabna says she saw holding some of these shell casings, the question is, where is he now and what has he done with those shell casings?
Where did he get them?
Exactly.
Can we even trust his story that all of those casings were picked from that location? So you can really tell. It's the reason the commission members are rightly concerned about where did these casings come from, who collected them, where were they collected, what was the motivation for collecting them, what is their agenda, can we trust their source? Those are relevant questions, and it is the reason the commission members are asking. And earlier you were talking about somebody, a source close to the commission, talking about they winding down. You can understand why they will be winding down, because when they were set up, the vice president who set up this commission on behalf of the president did this and gave them 1 month. It's been how many weeks? It's been 2 weeks or more. So they virtually have done half of the time that they have been given. But even more importantly, all the key persons who would have given relevant testimonies that will help the commission come to the conclusions or make the recommendations that it is supposed to make have all testified. You've had National Security Minister Albert Kandapa testifying. You have a Minister of State at the National Security Ministry, Brian Achampon, testifying. You have police commanders who were regional police commanders, district police commanders. You had persons at the National Security Secretariat, Director General Operations. You have the person who was in charge of the SWAT team, DSP Azugu. So, and you have the parliamentary candidate who was parliamentarian who was assaulted, Sam George testifying. You have the parliamentary candidate testifying. Yeah, so I think all of the relevant witnesses have given their testimonies. So at this point, unless there is some other reason why to invite some other persons, all the key persons have given their testimonies, and it's not strange that the commission is winding down its public hearings at least.
Now you may recall when Sam George, MP for Ningo Pram Pram, was given his testimony, he tried to correct the sequence of events, and at a point the commissioners and Commissioner Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu wanted some clarity because the videos were not shot in sequence. You see one video of him walking with somebody, you hear somebody saying, Honorable Sam George, you see him trying to stop the person, and then you see the assault, you know, and then there are a couple other videos that he showed himself, turned in, where you see the men coming from one side. So he's tried to tell the story from his side by trying to rearrange the different videos. There's a bit of uncertainty, I realized, from the response and even from the feedback from the commissioners. And so we are learning that they're actually going to the area tomorrow to see how everything panned out and try and reconcile the testimonies with what's on the ground. Yeah,
which is expected. And I think even when the parliamentary candidate Brimpong appeared before the commission, on the basis of his testimony, the commission members said that they will go to the scene because all the testimonies have been on the basis of things that happened there. Locations have been mentioned, properties have been mentioned, incidents have been mentioned. In order to be able to get a grasp of what exactly happened and to put to be able to situate some of the narration, it's important that the commission members are there, so that when people say there were a number of, and to quote the parliamentary candidate, there were wounds on the trees, bullet wounds on the trees. There were marks on a container. There were this and this place, and there's an uncompleted building here, and my house is there, and the polling station is here. And the electoral commission chairperson, Mrs. Jimensa, says the polling station is 140 meters from the parliamentary candidate's house. So it's important for them, the commission members, I mean, to go to the scene and be able to situate all of these testimonies and the narrations that have been given, so that it can help them form an opinion as to what story sounds credible, what doesn't sound credible, what is feasible, what is not feasible, what is practicable, what is not, what is embellishment, what is potentially factual or truthful. So they have to be there in order to be able to reach those conclusions. Otherwise, when you are told about happenings and you don't know exactly how the area looks like, you cannot have a true and proper appreciation and understanding of what you are being told unless you are there.
In fact, one of the areas mentioned in Mr. Sam George's testimony is a certain uncompleted structure with a short wall, which they use as a thoroughfare from the school's park or the polling station area to Mr. Delali Brimpong's house. We heard the DSP also mention that, and we've seen Sam George also try to give evidence to counter what other people have said before the commission with regards to the fact that, well, we were told that this incident didn't affect the polling or election in any way. But Mr. Sam George claims that there was an EC official who had a ballot box with her. We'll come back to continue this, but let's take you now to the Christian Bog Council, I beg your pardon. Chief Superintendent Kwesi Fori is testifying before the commission.